All right. Thank you everyone for coming for our Tech Tuesday session focusing on audio in slides. So just jumping back a little bit, last time we got together, we were talking about feedback in Google Classroom. So we talked about, accessing the work you've assigned, how to comment in your slides or private comments in the assignment mode directly to the student. And then also we talked about rubrics and the people tab and the insert image camera feature for you as the teacher, but also for students, particularly the grade 3s, the upper primaries. So this is what we're going to go over today. We're going to be like quick and then give you time for a Q&A. Just a quick why audio is crucial. I don't know if that's probably not necessary because you guys already know that, but and then we're going to talk about inserting audio recordings into slides. We're going to use a web-based recorder, and then just the steps: downloading Drive and then putting into your slides. And then there's also the voice note feature. We do have a Google Read Write as part of our G Suite, which is an awesome resource. And then you can use that voice note in a Google Doc. Unfortunately, it is not currently, doesn't work with slides yet. Hopefully they're working on that and will give us that option because it's much more seamless than the steps for putting audio in slides. And then we're going to do some Q&A. All right, so why audio recordings in your Google Documents and slides? So it helps students feel connected to the teacher when they're able to hear your voice as well in the things they're doing, especially the primary age kids and the grade 1s and 2s and 3s. Helps with that community and connection feeling. Audio instructions can be help students that are learning to read, so you can support scaffold that a bit. And then audio instructions are useful for differentiating as well, because different kids have different level of needs when they're reading a Google slide instruction on what to do in an activity. And I'm sure there's many more reasons that we could engage in audio recordings. Audio as opposed to video is also because audio is quicker to put together and less data crunching. So it bridges the gap a bit. So we keep coming back to this math prompt we've done since our first week, Tech Tuesday. So we are going to go through this together and create, I'm going to go out of present mode. In our slide, we're going to create the voice recording of this instruction or the prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this link. It's when we share this slide with you, you'll have this online voice recorder. I really like this one because it's secure and it doesn't ask for your Google Drive stuff. So you can just download the voice recording to your device and then upload it to Drive. There's a few extensions. We were talking about this earlier before the meeting started. There's a few extensions that you can look into that do voice recordings. There's just whenever you're looking at an extension, just read some of the reviews for them, because sometimes they glitch quite a bit. They stop working. You have to re-download them. There's all these things you have to kind of deal with. So in this case, I went with just a web-based voice recorder. So all you have to do is hit record, and then you can save it. So what I will do now is I will hit record. And I'll read, create cube trains that are 20 cubes long. Use only 2 colors. How many different trains can you make? How can you be sure you have 20 cubes in each train? I'm going to stop. Now, I like this because you notice how there's like dead space before and after when I started. I can just drag where I want my stuff to be saved. I don't need, just only want the actual recording. And when I click save, it's just going to download to my device. on Google Chrome, I mean, on a Chrome browser, which I highly recommend, do not do any G Suite stuff on Safari or other browsers because you'll run into all kinds of issues. The download shows up right here, which is very convenient because when I open up my Google Drive, all right, we're on Google Drive. All I have to do is just drag that little download, assuming I'm in the right folder, but I'm just going to drop it in my Google Drive and wait for it to upload for a couple of minutes. And then it's done. So I will go back to my slide. I just want to make sure I have the name there, right? So that I don't get it confused. So I'm going to go back to my slide. And I want to insert audio into this slide. And when you go to insert audio, it just automatically goes to your drive.
Hebron?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. I think that you're only showing us one tab or something. Like we couldn't see when you retrieved it from the bottom of your computer. And right now, we're in your drive. We're not on your slide.
Okay, here, let me just switch. Let me just switch my sharing. I'm going to stop presenting and present my whole screen. Thank you for letting me know. All right. So I was in here, and what I did was I just dragged that download file just right. I can just drag it right into my Google Drive and drop it. I don't want to do that now because I already have it uploaded here. And once it's in my drive, I can actually rename it. Just for, for your purpose, when you're doing tons of these, it's probably a good idea to rename those files from their default. It's not liking me because I'm sharing my whole window. All right, I'm going to come back to that. Google Drive's not happy with me right now. Okay, so it's probably because I have it open in here too. And then what I did was, in my slide, I'm going to go to Insert, Audio. If you go to Recent, that's probably the best way to find things in your Google Drive, by the way, when you're putting in assignments and things like that, because it'll show you the last file that was accessed in Google Drive. So this is the one. I actually want to select that, and it'll just drop it into my slide as a little play icon. And I can move that where I want to. It's a good idea to keep it always in the same place for your students so they know where to find it. You might think of something somewhere obvious like top right or bottom right or something like that, and they always know that, oh yeah, that's where the recording for the slide is. And for our primary friends, I would make that a little bit bigger. And then once that's in your slide, then they can play it. And they can stop it. And it doesn't take up a lot of the visual space of your slide. So I'm going to pause there. Unfortunately, there is no add-on for slides or extension that does a really good job of getting it straight into your slides without having to pop it into your Google Drive. But those are the two steps that are involved in that. Does anybody have any questions before we go on? All right, I'm just going to check my chat here. Oh, is that, Rula, I'll check into that. Is that a Chrome app?
Sorry, my computer is playing tricks right now.
Oh, it's okay.
Someone advised me just to put all the voice and the videos in one folder where you can access them, and at the same time you can put it on view only, so the kids won't be able to play with the voice. Just
Yes.
saying.
Yeah, it will default to that. But yeah, that's a good idea. You can even, if you're thinking organizationally, how am I going to do this is Google Classroom takes up, if you're in Google Classroom platform, takes up a whole folder in your Google Drive. So I wonder, my Google Drive is still frozen. Oh, wow. Struggling with life. All right. In your Google Drive, Google Classroom has folders for the assignments that you've made. So you can actually put it in the assignment it belongs with if you'd like to organize it that way, but you can organize it any way you want. These are all my numerous classes, but if I go into last year's class, I can show you like all the classes that all my assignments are in here, right? Focus on nature. So I can put it in the right assignment and then know that it's always there for me in case I want to refer back to it or use it in another year. That's kind of the power of having that organized. Okay, great points. I'm going to go ahead and continue to our next. So we're going to try this in a doc. Now, this is going to be way more seamless, and you're going to be not too impressed with not being able to do that in slides, but that's okay. So I'm going to open up a doc that I've attached here. Imagine if I had this prompt in a doc for a language piece particularly. We all have this Google Read Write feature, lots of really cool features in there. So to make that appear, you just got to press the purple puzzle that's like in your extension section of your browser, and then it'll open up. This voice note feature, you'll notice when I'm in here, is not there for slides, but in there for docs, which is really awesome. So I can just, it goes in kind of in the format of a comment. So I can click on it, start recording, and then create cube trains that are 20 cubes long. Use only 2 colors. How many different trains can you make? How can you be sure you have 20 cubes in each train? And then I can play it if I want to make sure I said the right thing. And then I can just insert it where my cursor is, and everything is taken care of, which is pretty sweet. Just got to wait a little bit. So when the student is accessing my feedback or, accessing my instructions, they can just click on it and it will just play. The voice note is actually really useful for feedback as well. Whether you're putting it in slides through Google Drive, it's a bit extra steps if you're thinking about doing that for each child. But if you have particularly 2 or 3 who need that, it's a great way in a Google slide or in a Google Doc to provide feedback, audio and text together. All right. So that's kind of like a really quick boom, boom, Google Slides, Google Doc. The online voice recorder link is here as well for you guys to refer to. That was referenced from EdTech guys, that they said that was a great web source as well. So now we're just gonna leave a little bit of time for Q&A and troubleshooting. Stop sharing my screen. Well, actually, you know what? I'll leave it on there, and just in case I need to show you guys anything. Any questions about audio recordings first, and then we can maybe branch out to other things that have come up. The first training. I believe, Aaron, that those recordings for Google Classroom assignments and other things we've done in the prior weeks, if that's what you're talking about, Rebecca, is available through the EDLP website. And I can probably dig it up for you afterwards. If
we will, I can drop the link to the website into the chat, and it's underneath PD. And if you scroll all the way down on that page to read, you'll find Hebron's other sessions that are available.
Awesome. What other questions do you have? Great point. Loretta popped in the chat, I would suggest for differentiation that you chunk your instruction and audio to help support and scaffold for your students. So don't do like a 5-minute audio recording. That'll also kind of cumber down your system to have like that big of a piece of data file in your slide, but it's also really great to chunk your instructions. Any other, oh. Yes, they are able to pause it and play it. I can show you that feature. Am I still sharing my screen? Yes, I am. Okay, perfect. We put that in here. So when they click on it, this little cursor comes up. They can play it and pause it. And then they can even like fast forward a bit. I mean, it's not super accurate because it's a tiny bar, but they can definitely do that. One of the things that I forgot to actually mention, which is really interesting here, is if you want to force an audio to happen without them having to click it when they go on the slide, you can start playing automatically. That's an interesting option. The rest is kind of like, well, looping the audio doesn't, and you do want it to stop when the slide changes. So you don't want it to go on when they're on another slide, and it'll get really confusing and messy, not know when things are playing. But the on click or automatically is a good feature there. And it shows up when you click on it in the format options bar or window. Yeah. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Thank you, Rebecca. That's a good question. All right, I will open it up then. If I think the audio bit is straightforward now. If you have any questions about Google Classroom and some of the stuff that we've looked at in terms of assignments and organization and giving feedback and all that stuff, we can open it up for those questions. Jillian, will having numerous small recordings slow things down? It not necessarily. I think the part where it's slower is when your student is maybe loading the file for the first time, because it'll just be a bigger size file. Or when as you saw, it kind of lagged a bit when I was dropping it into Drive and vice versa. So it won't necessarily slow things down significantly because audio files are pretty compact. But I mean, if you have a slide with like a whole bunch of slides and a whole bunch of audio, then it could. I would suggest, for primary grades, the idea of chunking things is really important. So like even maybe chunking some of those prompts. I wouldn't put like a day's worth of stuff into one slide if you're using Google Classroom. And things like that could affect, if you're doing a day's worth of stuff in one slide so that they don't have to go somewhere else, then you might have to reorganize things because that could be a really cumbersome file. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think audio files are pretty compact, so I wouldn't worry about it unless you're doing some really big slides. I mean, big slide files with lots of slides. Awesome. Thank you, Jillian. One of the things I would suggest, I know people might be, if you have any last minute questions, this is just pop them into the chat or interrupt me. One of the things I really suggest using are these, and maybe for the grade 3s and 2s, trying to help them use these read-write functionalities. They're pretty great. There's a voice-to-text functionality here. Text to voice, sorry, and a voice to text functionality, which are really great and have been huge help for differentiating for students with various needs. So especially in the primary ages, those might be very helpful for bridging some of that gap when we're looking at thinking from a student not having to worry about how they're going to be able to type and communicate with you and all that stuff. That's useful. Obviously, they're on synchronously with you, and having conferences in a small group is super crucial as well. Awesome. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I am going to stop the recording, and I will leave you to give me your last minute questions, conundrums before we head out. Oh, something's popped in here. I'm just... Yes, good point, Rula. If you're making some of the text as a background image so that the kids can't edit it or move it around, read-write won't pick it up because it's no longer, it's an image. It's no longer like a text object. So, I mean, you could differentiate some of those slide files, as we looked at in our assignment bit. So if you have students that you know will need the text read-write functionality, I would leave that as a text instead of a background image for those files, for those students. And when you give assignments to your other students, you could change it. What website do you recommend for audio for slides? Like the recording, Rebecca, do you mean the recording audio for slides? Yes, that website that is in that presentation that we will share as well is a really good one that I just showed you. It downloads straight to your computer and it's secure. I haven't found one that goes straight to your Google Drive. That's a really good one. There's a bunch that were around, like somebody mentioned earlier, but I think they've fallen off the wagon in terms of being supported over the years. But that one's really good because it just goes straight to your downloads, and then you can just pop it into your Google Drive before you put it into the slide. Colleen noted that sharing settings would need to be changed for audio files. Sounds right. Yes, so that is a good question. The audio file is embedded inside the slide. So if the slide, whatever sharing settings the slide has, the audio file is going to have as well. So like, unless you want, so if you're sharing it view only for a student to look at, they'll have view only. If you're sharing it for a student to access to edit, you might have to go in to make sure that they have a copy of that file. So that's kind of the nuance with this. But I think as long as your settings because what Google Slides will do is it'll embed that file, just like you put an image or a video into Slides, it'll embed it right in there. So it should follow the share settings. If you use Google Classroom, it kind of prevents, it keeps things simple based on, am I giving a copy for each kid or am I sharing that? I will have to do a little bit more experimenting with that to see what it does when a student can edit the file and let's say a student accidentally deletes that or something. There's also a the capacity to lock objects, some objects in Google Slides, Google Docs. So I'll have to look into that a bit more. Yes. I looked at Vocaroo, similar app. You have to download it and put it in Drive as well. It does create an HTML thing. It's complicated, an HTML embedding thing on Vocaroo, but you have to be changing a website. The HTML embedding feature on Vocaroo would be useful if you're doing stuff in Brightspace and want to embed an HTML file. If you're comfortable doing that, go for it. Super awesome. The name. Oh, yes. Okay. And I can even drop the link for that in the chat, the online voice recorder. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.